morning, everybody.
Morning.
It's remarkable that we're together and we're with remarkable people. Monsignor Marcelo Sanchez Sorondo is one of the most remarkable people you will ever have the blessing to know. And we're very, very lucky to be in his guidance and in his home. And Betsy Parker is a remarkably special person as well, and let's thank her again for bringing us together. We're in a unique place, obviously. You will never forget being here, and certainly we will never forget the picture we'll take this afternoon together, and this will be a life moment for all of us. But how special is this room? Look up here if you can, to just turn around to what is said there. It talks about the Lindsay Forum Academium established in MDC 111 in 1603. We're in one of the most important forums in the world in history, the Academy of Sciences, the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. And while you may not be aware, the Links Forum had as one of its founders Galileo, one of the founders of all scientific thought. And though the story is told of the church and Galileo's confrontation, the deeper story here is the alliance of science and faith of the church. And that is a story that is fundamental for the world because it's the combination of faith and hope together with knowledge that can allow us to make a better world. And that's what we're here for. It's also interesting, I could reflect that last week, my wife Sonia and I were in Leuven in Belgium, just outside of Brussels. We were celebrating the 500th anniversary of a very good book by Thomas More, Utopia, which was published 500 years ago this year. And Utopia is a remarkable vision of the world that can be, and as an inspiration. And it draws fundamentally on the same sources of classical wisdom and the sense of the ability to shape society for human well-being. And so we're in a great tradition when we meet together. We're in the great Western tradition. And while people are coming from all over the world in different traditions, this Western tradition for all of the world, dating back 2,500 years to the wisdom of Aristotle and the Greek philosophers, and to the church, and to the 500 years of this academy, 400 years of this academy, and the marriage of faith and science is really a home for our very wonderful deliberations today. I want to take my text from this year's Nobel laureate this year, who has made great contributions to the world. And his text goes like this: "Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'." And we could have you sing it instead. But Bob Dylan got a lot right, and so we're happy he won the Nobel Prize this year for literature. I'll continue because it gives us some guidance. "Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, keep your eyes open, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming. For the loser now will later to win. That's Matthew 20:16, by the way. For the times they are a-changin'. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be who has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. And soon it will shake your windows and rattle your walls, as the Pope has asked us. For the times they are a-changin'. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend a hand, for the times they are a-changin'. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, and the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changin'. That's your world. That song I listened to about 10,000 times, roughly 50 years ago, and it still rattles my walls, but this is your world too. It's rapidly changing, and we need new ways, and you have new opportunities and new tools, but there's never certainty in how this change will go. And the fundamental point of us being here today is that you are participants and protagonists in change. You're not observers and spectators. And if we don't choose actively the good path, there's no telling what will happen. For me, right around the time of this song, another very wise man, President John F. Kennedy, also made a very remarkable statement that defined modernity and its paradox. He said that for man holds in his mortal hands the ability to end all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. That's the paradox of modernity, that we have become technologically so powerful that what seems impossible to end poverty is really within reach. And we have become so technologically powerful that what seems unthinkable, destruction on a mass scale, is also possible. And that is really what we confront right now. When President Kennedy spoke about it, he was speaking about it mostly about nuclear weapons. And it behooves us to note that just 2 days ago, Russian and US jets nearly collided over the skies of Syria, because those who control the military don't have responsibility, unfortunately. And we all too easily play games that can end up in disaster. And at the same time, we have this remarkable opportunity, very realistic, to end poverty, which is unbelievable. Can you think how cool that will be that you guys do that? You know, for millennia, people have dreamt that. People have been told it's a utopia. People have been told it's impossible, and you can actually do it. That's pretty cool. So the legacy you have, it's not all bad. It is really the paradox of modern times. And fundamentally, it's a call for responsibility, and fundamentally a call for action. And I think you and I and all of us are quite lucky that we have a kind of marriage of Pope Francis's vision and a global call to action simultaneously. And it was literally simultaneous last September 25th, 2015 at the UN, just about the coolest day of my life, when Pope Francis spoke to world leaders at the United Nations. And then, as soon as he ended with, of course, world thanks to him, the 193 countries of the United Nations unanimously adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. What else could they do, you know? Okay. So it was really an incredibly remarkable moment. And our purpose is to actually make them real. That's why we're here. And that's hard work, by the way. And I'm not meaning to put a whole world on your shoulders, but I'm meaning to say this is what all of us together are here for. I personally think the idea that the world has agreed on these goals is of signal importance. You know, the world doesn't agree on very much. The world's attention span is pretty short, pretty diverse, pretty distracted. And so when all 193 countries of the United Nations agree on something, and it's good, my word, we're lucky, because that doesn't come along but once in a generation. And that's what happened on September 25th, 2015. And the spirit of that continued for the next weeks to December 12, 2015, when the same 193 countries, plus 3 other signatories, Cook Island, Niue, and the European Union as a group, so making 196 signatories, signed the Paris Climate Agreement. So within a few weeks, we had unanimity in the world around some important global objectives. And Pope Francis had said to the world, asked the world in Laudato Si for a common plan for our common home. And here the world rallied at least to set the idea of what these goals can be. So this is really fortunate for us. But it's hard work. And that's what we really face right now, is the tremendous, tremendous challenge of taking what is, after all, just a set of words and making it real. When you think about the challenge, I really like the wisdom of one of my scientific gurus and human gurus, I would say, and that's Professor Edward O. Wilson, the great biologist at Harvard University, who is just a magnificent person, and I think the leading evolutionary biologist of modern times. And when you visit him in his lab and he picks up an ant, he's the world's leading ant expert, you know that they're talking to each other. They understand each other perfectly. And I've watched it. It's amazing. But Professor Wilson says that we have stumbled into the 21st century with our Stone Age emotions, our medieval institutions, and our near godlike technologies. And so he talks about the disconnects of our basic human nature and all its complexity, of institutions like my government in the United States, founded in a quite remarkable document, but a document of 1789, and obviously not doing very well in its governance right now, unable to take effective actions for human well-being, even of Americans, much less the world, and these remarkable technologies that we have as our instruments to solve problems, but also as the potential of mass destruction, whether it's through weaponry or through climate change induced by the burning of massive amounts of fossil fuel. So we're here to understand how to put into action these global goals, how to find the spirit to do it, and how to find the direction to do it. If you reflect on the goals, you know that fundamentally they're guided by the idea of sustainable development and the concept, meaning in this case, that we should combine economic advancement with inclusion for everybody in society, a fair, just, inclusive, peaceful society, and that we need to reorient our production to be compatible with sustainability of the 10 million other species on the planet, millions of which are at peril at human hands, and compatible with the fundamental Earth systems of climate and the water cycle and purification of the air and water that enable us to survive, because as Pope Francis emphasizes in Laudato Si, we're part of that nature. We're not separate from the nature. We can't destroy nature and think that humanity somehow survives as well. So the Sustainable Development Goals call on us to address economic, social, and environmental objectives simultaneously. That's a pretty tough assignment. It's like having to pass 3 exams for 1 course, which doesn't seem fair. But it's even worse than that. There are 17 exams in this. This is a big, complicated agenda. And while nobody can master all of it, it's part of our responsibility to understand its interconnectedness. So I'm very much looking forward to our discussions today. Let me just conclude with a few guidances for you. You're starting out as leaders. You're at the beginning of a lifetime of leadership. And I've been at this for 40 years. I just had my 40th, Sonia and I had our 40th college reunion last week. Oh, wow, that was fast. And so I've been thinking about this issue for a while. And in practical terms, it's been, for me, 31 years of on the front lines, in the trenches. And so I think I've learned a thing or two about how change happens and how we can help make it happen. And so that's what I wanted to share with you. So just a few pointers. First, especially at your stage of leadership, learn, 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 learn. We live in a complicated world. Crucially, to solve problems, you need to understand them. So study. And don't presume you know the answers till you've looked at a problem from as many directions as you can, till you've listened to experts, till you've gotten on YouTube and listened to courses and to speakers and to TED Talks, until you've read books. And that process takes at least 40 years. And after 40 years, by the way, you feel a kind of desperation that everything you know, it turns out, not only are you forgetting constantly, but the universe of what you realize you need to know, and why didn't somebody tell me I needed to know that, 40 years later, keeps growing. So, but it's fun, by the way. We should all be endless students. No matter what we're doing in life, we should all be endless students. It's so interesting, these issues also. But to be effective, you need to understand the problems. And to understand the problems, you need to understand them from multiple perspectives. And you need always to understand them from the perspectives of all the participants in a problem also. You can't just see something your way, you have to see it from all of the different perspectives. A lot of what we're trying to do is to create a consensus, a shared view, a way forward. And so that really requires a 360-degree vision of these problems. So learning is first. Thinking, that's part of learning, but it's a little bit different also. It means reflection. Thinking, talking, comparing, taking notes, talking to each other, exchanging ideas, learning, listening. And there are so many good ideas in the world, you don't have to invent them all. You just have to listen very carefully for good ones and say, that makes sense. That's really true if you're an economist, because then you don't really know much of anything. And so you really have to listen to the malariologists and the epidemiologists and the energy engineers and the people who know all of these different things, because if you don't listen, you really know nothing. And so it's very important to think and to exchange ideas. But then, yes, you too will invent. And that's really important, because every solution has its local context, has its new needs, has its new opportunities, has its new apps that you'll be writing, or you'll be deploying, or you'll be creating and conceiving. And that's one of the things that's so incredibly exciting about the time that we live in right now, is the number of new things that can be put into motion. And as Pope Francis said, and as Bishop Sanchez Sorondo just said, something new can always emerge as part of our developing our potentialities. So invention is really important, but not invention first and then learning second. That can be pretty dangerous. We don't want you to blow up the laboratory. We want you to learn, to study, to have a concept, and to invent. And then next on my list is trying things, because actually deploying, trying concepts, putting them into practice, seeing how they work, learning that no matter how great your ideas or your inventions are, there's a lot of work to do to make them really work for well-being. And we're not here for theory. We're not here for, that was a nice idea, I don't know why no one's interested. We're here actually to do. We're here to put into practice. But to put into practice with all of that scientific and moral authority that comes from the preparatory steps that make it possible for you to act. Next on my list is mobilize. That means to help bring the resources that are needed, whether that's people to partner with you, power to enable you, finances to help pay for the inputs that you need. You're all entrepreneurs of sustainable development. What is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is somebody who brings together various parts of a new complexity, who says, I really need some help on this, and I really need some funding on this, and I really need the mayor to help me on this, and I really need my professor to help on this, and I really need some guidance on this, and I really need the telecoms company to give me some airtime, and I really need, and I am going to mobilize this by helping everybody to have a common shared vision. So an entrepreneur is the conductor who helps to bring together the strings, the wind section, the percussion, so that you can create this beautiful symphony together. Then inspire. We're 100 or so around the room, and the world is 7.4 billion, and we're privileged to be in this most remarkable place, and our responsibility is to use that empowerment to inspire others to do the same, and to share this idea, and to say, look what I've done, maybe you can do it better, or look what our city is doing, or look what our school is doing, or look what our class is doing, or look at this application, why don't you take this and improve it? And inspiring is a huge part, of course, of what you will be doing. Partner. Part of the idea is to find who can bring a great percussion section to your orchestra. Who is doing what you need to do in a certain area? Find ways to partner. Don't invent everything from the beginning. Don't presume everything, but find ways to enlarge what we're doing together through partnership. Teach. My wife, Sonia, is a medical doctor. They have a great and frightening expression in medical school. See one, do one, teach one. You watch the operation first, then someone puts the instruments in your hand, and then the next thing you know, you're teaching the next one. And teaching is a very, very important part of life. Somehow, every generation has to embody all of the knowledge and wisdom and add to it and impart it to others. How much work and effort this is to fight disorganization and ignorance and darkness and forgetting we need. And so teaching is absolutely fundamental to the task of accomplishment. Next is network. So we are the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. We are not the Sustainable Development Solutions Institute. We are not the Sustainable Development Solutions. We are a network for sustainable development. The whole purpose of the network is to help light up the whole world like a network can, by making the interconnections, by making sure that when you have a great idea, it is heard halfway around the world. And in fact, the whole world's represented here. So your network alone now can bridge the entire world. And this is remarkable. This is an opportunity that also, because of the capacity to connect with each other, is so powerful now that we have to move fast, remember. That's a part of the challenge, but it's also the opportunity that we have. And I should just mention again, the problems that we're facing right now are time-bound. That's really unusual. One could say, well, we've had poverty forever, we've had this forever, we've had that forever. We've never been in a situation like we are in the world now, where we're right up against the edge of many calamities and at the same moment, right up to the possibility of momentous positive occurrence. This is a unique condition for our time. And these goals are not just nice aspirations. These are time-bound objectives. That's the hardest homework assignment you've ever had. End poverty by the year 2030. Stop human-induced climate change before global warming goes beyond 2 degrees C. And remember, the Paris Climate Agreement says we should be aiming for 1.5 degrees C and to stay well below 2 degrees Celsius. That's time-bound. This year was 1.22 degrees C warmer than the pre-industrial level, partly because of the El Nino. The underlying trend is about 1.08 degrees C. In other words, we're well over halfway to the upper limit, and things are going fast right now. And so this is time-bound, and that's why this networking is so essential that we spread the news. Well, the last point on my list is celebrate, and that is to celebrate that we're together, celebrate that we are blessed to be in the company of Bishop Sanchez Sorondo, that we are blessed to be with Betsy Parker and with many other friends and remarkable people here, that we will be together at noon with the world's greatest moral leader of our time, and we will take inspiration from him. We're blessed to be with each other, and I can't tell you how thrilled I am of your commitment and dedication to this cause. And please know that we're here, us old fogies who've been doing this for a while, we're here to help you learn. We're here to help empower you, but we are counting on you. Thank you very much.